Today, I am sharing the explanation of Chaupai 7, Chaupai 8, and Chaupai 9 of Hanuman Chalisa in English from my Hanuman Chalisa by Devdutt Pattanaik. Chaupai 7. Clever and concerned. Vidyavan Gunyoti Chatur Ram Kaj Karibeko Atur. Educated, virtuous, and clever, Ram's tasks you always do eagerly. In the very first Chaupai of the Chalisa, Hanuman is described as the ocean, sagar of knowledge, gyan, and virtue, gun. This verse also reinforces Hanuman as being knowledgeable and virtuous and adds that he is also clever, chatur. This tendency to complement one quality with another is a typical Indian idiom. Just as one spice does not create a dish, and just as a good curry is a clever combination of various spices, even a good person is a combination of various qualities. In nature, we often say that the strong dominate the weak, but nature does not discriminate against the weak. They are given smartness to compensate for their physical weakness. Strength and smartness are tools to find food and security to survive and thrive. Hanuman is strong and smart and thus has the best of animal qualities. His knowledge and virtue are what make him human and divine. This verse reminds us that the educated man is not smart and smart man is not educated, and a smart educated man is dangerous unless he has virtue. What is virtue? The ability to look beyond our own hungers and fears and be concerned of other people's hungers and fears. The way Hanuman behaves when he first meets Ram and Sita indicates how his knowledge, his cleverness, and his virtue work together. When he sees Ram and Lakshman wandering in the forest looking for something, he realizes there is value in introducing them to Sugriv, the monkey king. He approaches Ram, taking the form of a Brahmin, and speaks in chaste Sanskrit, the language of the gods, which is an indicator that he has knowledge of the Vedas. Thus, he evokes trust in the very Ram who is agonizing over the abduction of Sita. Later, when it is time to meet Sita in Lanka, he wonders if he should speak in Sanskrit again while introducing himself. But he has seen Ravana speak in Sanskrit and fears Sita will assume he is an impostor, Ravana's agent, or Ravana himself posing as Ram's messenger. So he speaks to her in the organic language spoken by common folk. This is Prakrit, informal organic language, as against Sanskrit, formal designed language. In neither situation is Hanuman trying to show off or intimidate the other with his knowledge. He is driven by concern for the other. He is not anxious of the other. He can sense the anxiety of the other. He is smart enough to anticipate how people react in stress, how they get startled at the sight of a stranger and think the worst. The ability to adapt to the situation and win the trust and confidence of both Ram and Sita through speech reveals his sensitivity to people and to context, his communication skill, and most importantly, his empathy. Chaupai 8. Other people's stories. Prabhu Charitra Suni Beku Rasiya Ram Lakhan Sitaman Basiya. Ram stories you enjoy listening. Ram, Lakshman, Sita as well always reside in your heart. For Hindus, one of the ways to expand our mind and discover the divine within is by listening Shravana to stories of the divine. Puranic stories are containers, patra of Vedic wisdom, Atma Gyan. Stories are of different types: memoirs, itihas, chronicles, Purana, epics, Mahakavya, narratives, Akhana, glories, Mahatmya, biographies, Charitra, songs, Gita, prose poetry, Champu. Hanuman nourishes himself intellectually and emotionally by listening to stories of Ram as we learn from this verse. Traditionally, in gatherings where Ram's story is read out, one seat is always left vacant. Hanuman is described as Rasika, one who enjoys the aesthetic juices rasa of Ram's tale. As for Hindu aesthetics, a good story is like good food. It needs to have multiple flavors that stir the senses and arouse emotions, for only then can it incept thoughts that can help expand the mind. In folk tradition, Hanuman grows up listening to stories of Ram narrated by his mother. How is that possible? How can Hanuman hear stories of events that he himself participated in? In the Hindu worldview, the world goes through cycles of rebirth and redeath just like any other living creature. In each of its lifetimes, kalpa, the world has four phases, like all living creatures: childhood, youth, maturity, and old age. These are the four yugas identified as Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. The Ramayana takes place in Treta Yuga. Since the world has gone through infinite lifetimes, and in each kalpa there has been a Ramayana, everyone in every age knows the story of Ram. Anjana narrates to Hanuman stories of Ram from an earlier kalpa. Hanuman is so excited to hear the story of Ram that he desires to meet Ram, and so he goes to the city of Ayodhya, where he learns that Ram, the prince, is craving for a pet. Hanuman lets himself be captured by the soldiers who gift him to the prince. That way Hanuman becomes Ram's pet and also spends his childhood as Ram's companion. Thus, in local oral traditions, Hanuman is with Ram throughout his life, not just after Sita's abduction as narrated in various Sanskrit and regional texts. In the Valmiki Ramayana, when Ram and Sugriv meet for the first time, they exchange stories. Ram tells him his tragedy, how Ravana abducted his wife. Sugriv tells him his tragedy, how Vali usurped his kingdom. Hanuman realizes that Ram's story has a solution for Sugriv's problem, and Sugriv's story has a solution for Ram's problem. If Ram helps Sugriv get his kingdom, Sugriv will help Ram find his wife. Listening to each other's stories reveals mutual benefit. Had stories not been shared, neither would the problem be understood nor would a solution have been found. To see the other is to hear their stories. Brahma, the creator of all living organisms, and his children, such as Indra, are not worshipped because they do not care for other people's stories. They are consumed by their own. In exasperation, Shiva beheads Brahma, which is why Shiva is called Kapalika. Shiva has learned the importance of storytelling from Shakti. Together, they establish their relationship by telling each other stories, stories that are overheard by birds and fish and shared with the rest of the world. Vishnu hears the stories of Brahma's children and nudges them to hear the stories of those around him. But reciprocity is not easy. By listening to Sugriv's story, Ram not only understands his problem, he also understands Sugriv's personality. He realizes that Sugriv sees him as an ally but has doubts. So Ram shoots a single arrow through 7 trees, earning Sugriv's admiration and trust. Ram also realizes that after getting his kingdom, Sugriv will forget his end of the bargain, not because he is a cheat, but simply because he is so consumed by what he wants from others that he is unable to see what others want from him. Still, he gives Sugriv the benefit of the doubt and helps him overpower Vali. When Sugriv hears Ram's story, he sees a prince in distress and a potential ally in his fight against Vali. He sees what value Ram brings to him. He does not see Ram for what Ram is. By contrast, just by hearing Ram's story, Hanuman realizes that Ram is no ordinary human. His story has no villains or victims or heroes, just hungry and frightened humans seeking meaning. Hanuman recognizes Ram as the embodiment of divine potential, of Atma, of Dharma, all that is referred to in the Vedas, all that was taught to him by Surya. Hanuman does Ram's darshan each time he hears Ram's story. He wants to participate in it even as a minor character, for he relishes the idea of being part of Ram's story. One day he narrated the story of Ramayana to his mother, how the monkeys and he built the bridge to Lanka, fought the Rakshasas, killed Ravana, and reunited Sita with Ram. Anjana was not impressed, for she felt her son was not living up to his potential. You could have just swung your tail and defeated the demons and rescued Sita without this whole charade of building a bridge and fighting a war. Why didn't you? She asked. Hanuman replied, because Ram did not ask me to. Hanuman knew the Ramayana was Ram's story, not his. He did not want to control or appropriate or overshadow Ram's story. It was about Ram, not him. It is significant that the very first narrator of the Ramayana is Hanuman himself. He describes Ram to Sugriv. He tells the story of Ram's adventures to Sita when he meets her in Lanka, and does the same when he meets Bharat in Ayodhya. Later, he writes the first biography of Ram, known as Hanuman Nataka, but destroys it so that Valmiki gets the credit of writing the first epic on Ram. In stories, Hanuman observes Ram's relationship with Lakshman and Sita and realizes how Ram's brother and Ram's wife complete him and how he completes them. When Hanuman places all three of them in his heart, he is essentially placing in his heart the idea of relationship, that the self is incomplete without the other, that the self exists in an ecosystem of others. That is why in Hindu temples no deity is placed alone. The deity always has a spouse or a child or a companion or an attendant. Even Hanuman, who has no relatives, is not placed alone. We know that in his heart is present his master, who in turn is accompanied by his brother and his wife. This value placed on relationship between the self and the other is key to Hindu stories. Most mythologies, ideologies, and philosophies around the world can be broadly classified into two categories: individualistic and collectivist. Individualistic mythologies value the one over the group. Collectivist mythologies value the group over the one. Greek and Taoist ways, for example, are individualistic. Abrahamic and Confucian ways are collectivist. One can even classify Shaivite mythologies as individualistic and Vaishnavite mythologies as collectivist. However, that is not quite accurate. Hindu mythologies are best understood in terms of relationship. Shiva's relationship with Shakti and Vishnu's relationship with Lakshmi. Instead of the binary of the individual and the group, Hinduism focuses on the relationship between two individuals, the dyad. Shiva tends to withdraw from the other. Vishnu engages with the other. When we relish the stories of the gods, as Hanuman does, we see the gods truly and recognize their presence or absence in us, just like Hanuman. Chaupai 9. Adapting to context. सूक्ष्म रूप धरी स्याही दिखावा, विकट रूप धरी लंक जरावा. You took a small, vulnerable form before Sita. You took a giant, fearsome form to burn Lanka. In the first quarter of the Hanuman Chalisa, a lot of emphasis is placed on the origin, form and attributes, the role as well as the preferences of Hanuman. We refer to his mother, his earthly and celestial fathers. We refer to his appearance and his symbols, his qualities and capabilities, his love for Ram's stories, and his desire to serve Ram. With this verse, we are describing his many feats, his ability to contract and expand himself physically as the situation demands. To the frightened Sita, he appeared as a small, non threatening monkey. To the arrogant Ravana, he appeared as a giant, fearsome creature. Hanuman is thus no ordinary creature. He is a shape-shifter who knows what shape other people respond to. In Hinduism, God is constantly playing games, Leela, nudging the devotee child to realize his divine potential. Thus, God can expand or contract, encompass infinity, Virat Rupa, and change shape and size for the benefit of all living creatures. Vishnu, for example, manifests as a fish, a boar, a priest, a king, or a cowherd. This ability to adapt for the benefit of the other is a hallmark of divinity, one that Hanuman also possesses. The transformations of Hanuman described in this verse, of contrasting and expanding in size, come from a chapter known as Sundarkand in the Ramayana. The chapter is named Beautiful Sundar as it evokes hope, the possibility of Sita and Ram reuniting thanks to the intervention of Hanuman. It is also thus named because it is the only place where he experiences the tenderness of Ram's love for Sita and Sita's love for Ram. Hanuman conveys Ram's words and describes Ram's sorrow to Sita, and Sita conveys her feelings to Ram through Hanuman, even sharing intimate secrets such as how Ram used to rest his head on her lap when he was exhausted in the forest. Hanuman's puny form makes Sita wonder how he could possibly have leaped across the sea. So Hanuman reveals his giant form and reassures her. Later, Hanuman lets himself be caught by Ravana's soldiers so that he gains an audience with the Rakshasa king, enough to realize that sensible words will not work with one such as Ravana, who is consumed by his own self importance and is so frightened that he constantly feels the need to dominate those around him. Unable to break free from his animal nature, Ravana only understands the language of force. So, when Ravana refuses to treat Hanuman as a messenger and give him due respect by offering a seat to him, Hanuman creates his own seat, extending and coiling his tail. Only Hanuman's seat is at higher level than Ravana's throne, forcing Ravana to look up rather than down, a humiliation that Ravana cannot bear. Furious, unnerved, the king of Lanka orders his soldiers to set Hanuman's tail on fire. Hanuman responds by twirling his tail in every direction, setting fire to Ravana's beautiful palace and the city of Lanka around it before leaping off the island kingdom. In India, there are broadly two types of monkeys, the red-faced monkey with golden fur and the black-faced monkey with silver fur. In folklore, it is believed that the suit of Lanka burning turned the red-faced monkey into the black-faced monkey. In art, Hanuman images can be classified into two types depending on the location of the tail. If it is lowered, it indicates the gentle, Saumya form with which Hanuman approached Sita and Ram. If Hanuman's tail is raised, it indicates the fierce, Rudra form with which Hanuman stood up to Ravana. This reaffirms Hanuman's relationship with Shiva, who is known for both his gentle Shankara and fierce Vairava forms. Hanuman is also depicted, especially in the south, with his arm extended as if he is going to slap someone. This is called Tamacha Hanuman, the form he took to humiliate Ravana. By contrast, When his image is placed next to Ram, his arms are in a position of veneration. This form is called Ramadasa, the servant of Ram. The explanation of the following Chaupais will be continued in the next videos. Iti Sri Hanuman Chalisa Samapto.